What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Same Phillies Sports History for September 13th, 2023. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Before we get into today's episode, a couple quick housekeeping notes, but it is an interesting episode. These are the episodes I like, the ones that are kind of off the beaten path. But first, there will be a new Back to the Future dropping tomorrow. I plan on posting everything, getting it uploaded before I go to the Eagles game. So I'm cutting out some of my tailgate time for everyone to listen to Back to the Future, but it's well worth it. I'm super excited about this episode. I sat down with Ken Avalon from the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame yesterday, and we just talked about the history of the museum, the whole process behind and the thinking behind the whole concept. It is their 20th anniversary, so we talked a little bit about some of the special things they're doing for this year. We talked about this year's induction class and the actual ceremony, and just ways that all of us can help give back. It was a very fun sit down to talk with him, so stay tuned for that tomorrow. Roughly between 4 and 5 o'clock it should be dropping, but the best way to stay in the know is to like and subscribe. And since we're going to be talking about the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, a lot of the greatest of all time athletes, or the GOATs, will be there. And obviously we know who the GOAT of Philadelphia sports apparel is, and that is Philly Goat. Be sure to go check them out and get your Eagles gear, your Phillies gear. Flyers and Sixers are opening up. Union are getting ready to go on a playoff run. It's going to start getting chilly, I hope. It's been brutal outside. I had to mow yesterday, and it was just like, geez. But it should be getting colder. They have a great selection, an awesome selection of like long sleeve tees and hoodies and things like that. So go check them out. PhillyGoat.com. Use that promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off of your order. All right. One more quick housekeeping thing. Be sure to check out my friends at the Clashing Conferences podcast. I'm anxious to see what this week brings. For those of you who don't know, I've been talking about it, but it's basically around the horn style podcast where you have a representative from each of the 4 NFC East teams. And after this week in the NFC East, I am dying to see the banter that goes back and forth, and just check it out. Those guys are hilarious. So the Clashing Conferences podcast, we will be doing more with them as the season goes in or moves forward. All right, so tough one for the Phils, and this is the second time in a row now that they have done this, and it's just frustrating when you have those games and you just can't close it out. And I think what it's doing is Atlanta is a great offensive team, don't get me wrong, but it's shining a spotlight on just the pitching in general, but most importantly the bullpen. But I mean, I guess the bullpen did a good job after Wheeler got out yesterday, but it's just one of those tough losses. Love to see the way they battled back, though. You can never count this team out. There's a ton of fight. Luckily for them, the Cubs lost as well, so it's one of those no harm, no foul losses where they're still a game and a half up on them, as well as 3.5 in that top spot. I would like to see them win today and split this series 4 games apiece. Atlanta does have the opportunity to win the division today, I think I heard, so I'd rather not have that happen on our turf. So let's go out and win that game today and then move on from there. But they will be down in Atlanta next week, so it's not like they're not going away. But maybe we catch a break with Atlanta clinching this weekend, not in Philadelphia, and maybe they're going to try some young guys out, get some guys some rest and different work. So let's just take care of business today, and then we don't have to worry about it. If you want more Phillies coverage, check out 2008 Phils, world's biggest email Phillies newsletter, currently giving subscriptions at a 75% off discount for this day in Philly sports history listeners. Check the link in the description. What you get is that 2008 World Series banner t-shirt, access to everything on their site, which is going to be clutch coming into playoff time, and especially now the stuff that they've been putting out has been good. You get access to all of the giveaways they do. You get 2008 Phils will follow your Twitter account, all for $2 a month, $20 for the year. So definitely worth it just for the t-shirt alone, but the content is second to none. So go check them out. 2008 Phils. The link is in the description. All right, no real updates for the Eagles. All is quiet as they're preparing for the game tomorrow. Kind of looking at the line, trying to get my feel for which way I want to go. The line right now is 7, and the over/under is 49. I think I got a good sense and a good feel of where I want to go with the line. The over/under is, I don't know if it's too high, if it's too low, so I still have some time. I'm kind of crunching and looking at some things on there, but stay tuned for that tomorrow when we do our picks. But we are 2-0, so if you're following me, we are up 2 units, so we'll take it. A lot of good feedback on the load management thing with the NBA and the Sixers yesterday, and the general consensus was people didn't know how to feel. One person in particular was like, it's a different, like you feel different if you're watching it on TV versus when you're in person. And I mean, I agree with that. It's one, like, as I told this story before, but when we went down, took the kids down to the Sixers last year, we found out as we were pulling into the parking lot that Joe was out for foot soreness or something like that, but it was basically a load management thing that they decided the last minute. And obviously we had fun, but we were disappointed that we didn't get to see Joe play. But if you're watching on TV, it's kind of just like, whatever. So, I mean, I don't know which way to go with this. I do think it's going to be tough to enforce because big picture, I think what you're going to end up seeing is a lot of like soft tissue injuries, things that aren't going to show up on an MRI. Like, hey, my foot hurts. Well, we took an MRI and everything's fine. Yeah, but my foot hurts. And I mean, I've been there. I went, got a X-ray and an MRI on my foot before. Showed no damage or nothing like that, but I had plantar fasciitis, which was very painful. And one of the things to do was to kind of do some stretching and rest. So, like I said, it's going to be hard to enforce. So, good luck to the NBA and the teams on trying to figure this out. But, I mean, I guess it could work. I guess they need to figure out all of the possible loopholes because the teams are going to figure them out. All right, as I mentioned, today is one of those fun ones, and it's, like I said, off the beaten path, one of the more non-mainstream sports, which was something I talked to Ken about yesterday. But today we're going to go back to 1924, and on this day, September 13th, 1924, the United States won its 5th straight and 8th overall International Lawn Tennis Challenge. Today, you may know this as the Davis Cup, which the Davis Cup is basically a world team men's team tennis tournament. It's basically like the World Cup of men's tennis. And this happened at Germantown Cricket Club right there in Philadelphia. It is, like I said, now it's called the Davis Cup, but it's the premier team tennis event for men. This was the first time it was in Philly. It was in Philly for 4 straight years. Came back again in 1938. And then in 1939, they played at the Marion Cricket Club in Haverford. That I could see the finals have not been back, but I couldn't find if there were maybe some preliminary matches somewhere. But the Germantown Cricket Club, I've been past it many times when I lived in the city and didn't realize the historical significance of it. It was a founding member of the United States Tennis Association, hosted the first Penn and Princeton football game, as well as the first women's U.S. Open tournament. So pretty interesting that sort of off the beaten path, non-mainstream sport has a ton of history right there in Germantown, in between East Falls and Germantown. But on this day, it was the United States winning its 5th straight and 8th overall International Lawn Tennis Challenge, which today we know as the Davis Cup, right in our own backyard at the Germantown Cricket Club. All right, time for Who Wore It Best. And yesterday was number 7, and it was pretty convincing. Bill Barber won with 62% of the vote. Ron Jaworski and Mike Vick split the remaining votes. I don't think there's a really surprise there. Barber's number's retired. He's in the Hall of Fame, one of the best to ever do it. Won 2 Stanley Cups. I think he kind of epitomizes the number 7 in Philadelphia. today's going to be an interesting one, and we'll just kind of leave it at that. And just know that I tried to think about this rationally and logically, not with emotion. But today is number 9. And currently there's only one number 9 in Philadelphia, and that's Mac McClung. You know him from winning the slam dunk contest last year. Some notables who have worn number 9 in Philly sports. Bob Uecker, yes, Bob Uecker from Mr. Belvedere fame, Miller Lite commercials, and actually as the voice of the Brewers. But he actually was a Major League Baseball player, played 1 year in Philly, wore number 9. I still remember him most either for Bob Uecker or the Miller Lite commercials, but that's just me. Don Brown, Rodney Peete, Jim McMahon, Ivan Provorov, Willie Burton, the year he scored 53 points in a game, the most unlikely 50-point scorer in NBA history. George Lynch from the 2000-2001 Sixers, Andre Iguodala, Dario Saric, and Manny Trio. Now, I'm probably going to get some arguments on Manny, but hear me out. All right, so we have 4 today. First is probably up until 2017, probably the most famous number 9 in Philly sports, and that's Von Hayes, who ironically played 9 years here. And even the double irony on this one is Manny Trio, who also wore number 9, was involved in the 5-for-1 trade to bring Von Hayes to Philly. So Von Hayes never obviously lived up to the price they paid, but he had a respectable, solid career in Philly. Still comes back for the alumni weekends and things like that. Next on the list, we have Bob Hound Dog Kelly, who played 10 years for the Flyers, won 2 Stanley Cups, is an enforcer. I met him at a bar one time. Just a very, very nice guy, down to earth. Nothing like how he played on the ice. And now we're moving to 2 Eagles who I had to choose both of them. And hear me out on this. The first is Sonny Jurgensen, who is a Hall of Famer, started his career in Philly, played 7 years, led the Eagles to the 1960 championship before moving to Washington, where he played, I think it was like 11 years or so. Spent the bulk of his career in Washington, but he is a Hall of Famer. He did lead the Eagles to the title in 1960, and up until our next guy, it was the last time the Eagles had won a championship. And finally, I'm almost positive I know how this vote is going to go on this one, but I had to include the other guys first because I think that they each can make a legitimate claim as who wore it best. But obviously, we have Nick Foles, who led the Eagles as a backup, coming in relief of Carson Wentz to our only Super Bowl in 2017 in Super Bowl 52. It was just lights out. Won the MVP of that Super Bowl. Had 5 years in Philly, and so of all of these guys, he played the least amount of time in Philly. His career's ups and downs. It was either all or nothing, basically, for Nick Foles. Like, you had the Super Bowl, you have the 27-2 year, and then you have everything else. But I'm anxious to see and interested to see which way people go with this, because I could see some of the hockey guys saying Hound Dog Kelly. I know one person in particular in my core group of friends who's going to go Von Hayes just for the sake of saying it's Von Hayes. But I could see the Jurgensen-Nick Foles thing maybe creating a divide along generational lines, because both of them, like I said, won championships in Philly, and there haven't been many, only 3 championship winning quarterbacks in Philly. So we have 2 of them that wore number 9. So now it's your turn. Let me know who wore number 9 best. Is it Mr. 5-for-1 Von Hayes? Is it Hound Dog Bob Kelly for the Flyers? Sonny Jurgensen, who led the Eagles to the 1960 championship? Or BDN Nick Foles, who led the Eagles to Super Bowl 52 and their only, as of now, Super Bowl championship? So let me know. Get those votes in. Hopefully the Phillies can split this series with the Braves and maybe even pad their lead over the Cubs a little bit. Be sure to check out all of our friends, 2008 Phils, the Clashing Conferences podcast, obviously PhillyGoat.com, as we're going to be talking about some of the GOATs in Philly in the coming months leading up to the 2023 Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremony in November. Be on the lookout for Back to the Future. That's Back to the Future with a PH. Best way to stay in the loop. Like and subscribe and get it delivered directly to your inbox. It's Wednesday. Eagles game day is tomorrow. try to make it through. I think it's supposed to be a little bit nicer weather-wise today. God, I hope so. I'm ready for fall. But go enjoy your Wednesday. I'm Jim Montgomery. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.